Oh, my name is James Sanderson, and I am currently one of the ministers at the Baker Heights Church of Christ right here in Abilene, Texas. I'm recording this during our coronavirus, and I hope everyone is staying safe. Today, I would like to start a series on the book of Revelation. This is going to take a little bit of time. We're going to go through each chapter of the book, and so there'll be several videos, and I hope you stay with us. But I find it interesting that the book of Revelation, everybody wants to talk about it. In fact, if you look at religious TV today, a lot of people are really talking about the coronavirus and connecting it to the book of Revelation. Well, I don't know about that. We're going to find out if that's really what the book of Revelation is about. But lots of people have questions about this book. It's the very last book in our Bibles. So I would like to discuss, that's one reason why I want to discuss this book, is because so many people can really take this book out of context and really try to make it say something that the book never really talked about. And we want to get back to the truth and see what this book is really dealing with. So that's going to help us as we go through this series to really see what this book's about. Also, because so many people take this book out of context, the church kind of gets away from this book. They don't want to go and talk about it. I've met several Christians who have been in the church for many years, and yet they've never went over the book of Revelation because, well, it's just too hard. It's too tough to understand. I remember being at Sunset School of Preaching, SIBI, in Lubbock, Texas, where I went to preaching school. And we had a man named Richard Rogers, and he actually took us through the book of Revelation. And the very first thing he said was, this is by far one of the most easiest books in the Bible to understand. I didn't agree with him at that point. I was like, no, this is a very, very difficult book. But when we got done with that book, I fully agree with him. So I hope that you also will see that this book is easy to understand. All right. But before we understand this book, this is what we need to do. We need to go over 7 basic principles of how to understand this book. Now, if we apply these 7 basic principles all through this book, we don't get off and we don't forget these principles, we'll be fine. If we miss these principles and we forget to use these principles as we're going through the book, boy, we're going to go off into left field. We're going to be here and there. And it's going to really become a mess. So let's go through these today. Let's discuss these 7 basic principles of understanding the book of Revelation. Number 1, what is the book of Revelation about? Well, again, a lot of people think that the book of Revelation is about the end of time. World's coming to an end. There's going to be some big, huge battle in Armageddon. People are going to have 666 printed on their foreheads or their hands, and all kinds of things that come from this book that people get ideas about. But let's really see from the scripture what this book is about. And it's actually found in the very first chapter in verse 1. Look what it says. The revelation of Jesus Christ. Now, let me make a point here. This book is not called Revelations with an S, as many use to refer to this book. No, this book is called the book of Revelation. It's a revelation, just singular, not plural. And who is it a revelation of? It's of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is being revealed in this book. And we're going to see why it's so important that he's revealed. Not only for the people that this book was written to, but also for us in our lives. So if you go through this book, and you miss that this book was about Jesus, you have missed this book. How many times he is found here? Just verses after verses after verses after verses, all through the book. I've just put a few of them here that mention Jesus. In fact, there is a total of 99 verses that refer to Jesus Christ. So what is this book about? This book is about Jesus. Don't miss that. All right? Now, the second thing we want to discuss is who is this book written to? That was to write you a letter and say that somebody else got a hold of it and they read it. And they go, this doesn't make sense. These are things that have nothing to do with me. And it just wouldn't be a letter that made a whole lot of sense. Well, it's the same with the book of Revelation. This book was specifically written to somebody, and if we fail to forget that and keep that in mind to who it was written to, then this book could become quite confusing. So let's see who it was written to. This is Revelation chapter 1, verse 10 and 11. On the Lord's day I was in the Spirit, and I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet, which said, "Write on a scroll what you see and send it to the 7 churches." So this is the Apostle John, and he's getting this vision on the Lord's day. I believe this is Sunday, and he is writing it to who? Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, not Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, by the way, and Laodicea. So those 7 churches, this book was specifically written to them. And here's where these are found. They're found in Asia Minor. Now, when we think of Asia today, we think of China and Russia and just a huge continent. But biblically, Asia Minor is this area right here. And this is where the 7 churches of Asia is found. It's in modern-day Turkey today, just right there next to the Mediterranean Sea. And here's those churches. There's all 7 of them. You see them there? All right. And that's who it's written to. So that means that this book must have something to do with them and something to do with their lives and something that would pertain to them. We need to remember that as we're going through this book. Now, not only was it written to the 7 churches of Asia, but what in the world's going on with their lives? What's happening to them? Well, let's see. This is very important. John here, in Revelation chapter 1, verse 9 says, "I, John, your brother and partner in the tribulation." Now, do you know how many people are taking this book of Revelation and applying it and saying, "Man, the tribulation's coming, get ready"? You notice that when John writes here, he uses the word tribulation. And when he says it in the present tense. That means that John is now in the tribulation. And not only is John in the tribulation, but so are they, because he's a partner with them in the tribulation. So the tribulation that the book of Revelation is referring to isn't to the future. Isn't sometime in the future. It's during their time. The 7 churches of Asia living during the Roman Empire. That's when this book was written. And he says, "I'm a partner in the tribulation and in the kingdom and the patient endurance that are in Jesus." Was on the island called Patmos on the account of the word of God and the testimony of Jesus. So, where is John at? He's on the island of Patmos. Why is he there? The word of God. He is being persecuted. Well, let's look and see what this island looks like. This is the island of Patmos. It's not one of your most popular places to go where the beautiful beaches of sand and everything are at. It's basically an island of a rock. Okay, this is what it looks like, and this is where John was at. And John was in prison there. And this is where some of the Roman people that were taken by the Roman government and kept as prisoners, they were kept on this island. In fact, here's some of the pictures of those cells where they actually had to stay. And they were kept, and you can still tour that today. So John was persecuted. And not only was John persecuted, but so are the 7 churches of Asia. So here's the island of Patmos. He's writing to the 7 churches of Asia. He's being persecuted, and so are they. Watch what it says here. It says in chapter 2, he's talking to one of the 7 churches here, and he says, "I know your tribulation, and I know your poverty, but you're rich. And I know the slander of those who say that they are Jews, but are not, but are of a synagogue of Satan. Do not fear what you are about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested for 10 days, and you will have tribulation. So John's in the tribulation. The 7 churches of Asia are in the tribulation. They're being persecuted. They live where Satan lives, right? And some of them are being thrown into prison. That's a pretty tough world, isn't it, to be a Christian? Yes. This is why the first picture is Jesus is being revealed. They need to see Jesus so they can make it through this tribulation. Now, a little bit later, after the time of the book of Revelation, but not much farther to the future, this is a picture of the Colosseum. And in the future, Roman Caesars, are going to take Christians, put them inside of this Colosseum, and if they claim to be a Christian, they'll send the lions in and they'll devour them as a sport for everybody to watch. That's persecution, isn't it? In fact, during that time, it also says that Rome literally ran out of lumber because they crucified so many Christians. Can you imagine that? They ran out of trees. The Roman Empire was huge. How do you run out of trees? That's a lot of crucifixions. In fact, history tells us that sometimes they would take Christians, dip them in oil, and put them up on crosses and light their streets with their bodies. Could you imagine going through that? See, that's why this book is important. It's to help and encourage these Christians. So the church is persecuted. So now we know what's going on. Now we know the situation, right? Here's what it says in chapter 2, verse 13. I know where you live, where Satan has his throne, yet you remain true to my name. You did not renounce your faith in me, even in the days of Antipas, my faithful witness, who was put to death in your city where Satan lives. You can clearly see these people, some of these Christians, are being killed. That's what the situation is. That's the situation of what these Christians are going through. Now we've seen what the book's about. Jesus is going to be revealed. Who is it written to? 7 churches of Asia, and what their situation is. They're being persecuted. Now we're going to look at the style of how this book was written. And it's a little different than ours of how we would write a book today. But the book of Revelation is a picture book, not a comic book, but it's going to have lots and lots of pictures. And it's going to use pictures, animals, colors, and numbers. Now here's the key though. When we look at these and we look at these numbers and colors and pictures, we want to let the Bible interpret what those mean and not with our American minds coming along and interpret what they mean. Some people will read these pictures and see these pictures and see helicopter gunships or nuclear warheads in the book of Revelation. What would that have to do with the 7 churches of Asia? Nothing. So what we want to do is we want to let the Bible interpret what these pictures are, not with our American minds coming along many years later and trying to figure it out. So let me show you a picture here. This is a picture in Revelation chapter 1, and it's actually a picture of Jesus. Now, he walks among the 7 golden lampstands. Okay, so gold is precious, right? And this represents the churches. The church is precious. What does a church do? It gives off light. See, none of this is to be taken literal. These are pictures. Just step back and get what the picture is, and it'll make a lot more sense. Okay? So, who walks among the churches? Jesus. Oh, that's important because those churches need to know that Jesus is with them as they're going through this persecution. Just like us, we need to apply that to our lives and say Jesus is also with us. He walks among the church. Oh, that's important. What does he look like? Well, he's got white hair. That means that he has been around a while, right? My grandkids think I'm really old. So Jesus is called the Ancient of Days. Also, he has eyes of fire. He can see into their hearts. He can see all over the world. He can see everything. He knows what they're going through. He wears a golden sash. That is royalty. Jesus is the King of Kings. He is Lord of Lords. He rules even above Rome and their persecution. That's important. He has bronze boots. He can stomp out their problems, right? So here we have a picture of Jesus. But then we have over here in Revelation chapter 5, we have another picture of Jesus. Now this one shows Jesus who is a lamb. Now when you think of a lamb, you have white purity. Jesus is referred many times as the Lamb of God. So he had no sin, he was pure. But then it says this lamb was slain. You can see the blood there on the lamb. All right? What do you think that represents? It means that he died on the cross. He died to save us, right? Now, if you were to slay a lamb, how would that lamb be standing? Well, it wouldn't be standing. It would be laid out on the ground. But this lamb is standing in the throne room of God. What does that represent? The resurrection. That gives those Christians hope that there's going to be a resurrection. And if Jesus rose from the grave, we're going to raise too. See the picture? Now, what is on his head? 7 horns. So here we get into the number 7. 7 horns. Now, where do we see horns at? Where do we usually attribute horns to? Satan, right? 2 horns. I don't know where that came from. But if you take the Bible, let me give you an example of this, and you let the Bible interpret the Bible, horns mean authority throughout the Bible. And Jesus has how many of them? 7. Where does the number 7 come from? It comes from creation, right? In Genesis chapter 1 and 2, that God rested on the 7th day. Everything was complete. What does Jesus have? Complete authority. All that is. And then it says he has 7 eyes. Complete. Number 7, right? Has meaning. Let the Bible interpret that meaning. And what do you do with those eyes? He can see everything. 7 churches of Asia need to know that. So do you see the pictures? Don't make these literal. Don't go to heaven and go, oh, I'm looking for Jesus. He's got a white robe and white hair. Well, he may not. Or I'm going to heaven and I'm looking for Jesus. I'm looking for the Lamb who has blood on him because he was slain. No, I don't know if that's going to be literal or not. These pictures are figurative, and we just get the ideas and the concepts that God is trying to teach us from the pictures. So don't make these literal. I don't know what Jesus is going to look like, but whatever he looks like, he's going to be great. He certainly is going to love us. Here we have another picture in Revelation chapter 6. And here we have the white horse, and a red horse, and a black horse, and a pale horse. And it's giving a story, the storyline starting in chapter 6. White horse, purity. Also that horse, it's strong, it conquers. But then the red horse, that's blood. The black horse, that's famine. And the pale horse, that is death. So that's the world we live in. And that's the world the people of the book of Revelation dealt with. They dealt with all these things. But we will get into that when we get into Revelation chapter 6. Okay. We also see when we get to Revelation 17, it talks about a prostitute who sits on 7 hills. Now again, you don't make that literal, right? This is Rome. Everybody during that time knew that Rome sat on 7 hills. You can see the 7 hills that surrounds there, right? So there it is. But she's also described as a prostitute. Now, a prostitute can promise you a lot of things. And she may look really good when the lights are off or dim in the darkness. But when you turn those lights on, she doesn't look so good the next morning, does she? Well, that's the way Rome looks. When she is really revealed and all the promises that she has made to the world, she can't uphold any of those. And she doesn't look so good. So again, there's the picture. You just get these pictures, but none of them are to be taken literal. Does that make sense? I hope it does. All right. So the great prostitute who sits on 7 hills. Revelation chapter 17. And then we see over here the lake of fire. Now that's quite a picture. Revelation chapter 20. That's not a pretty picture, is it? You can get the concept. You want to make sure that doesn't happen to us. We don't want to go to a place like that. All right. Now, number 5. Revelation is also an Old Testament book. Now, you might be saying, wait a minute, James, that's wrong. Book of Revelation is in the New Testament. Let me explain to you what I mean. When I was at Sunset School of Preaching, I was known as the guy, Gerald Payton used to call me the Statue of Liberty because I would literally come into class with my hand raised, okay? I wanted to make sure that I got my money's worth and I got my questions answered. So we asked a lot of questions in our class. And when we got to the book of Revelation, we had 8 weeks, and I thought to myself, wow, this is such a deep book. It's going to be so hard to understand. There's going to be just tons and tons of questions. And do you realize, out of all the classes I had over 2 years at Sunset, Revelation ended 1.5 weeks before the 8 weeks was up. We ended up early. And you're asking, well, how in the world did we do that? Because we asked all of our questions in the book of Ezekiel, the Old Testament. We asked all of our questions in Isaiah, the minor prophets, Jeremiah. Once we had a basic understanding of the Old Testament, this book made a whole lot more sense. The point is this. Book of Revelation, out of all the verses that are found there, 80% of them make reference to the Old Testament. So if we don't have a basic understanding of the Old Testament, this book is not going to make sense. Let me give you a few examples. Like when he's talking to one of the 7 churches of Asia, he uses the story of Balaam and his donkey. Now he's applying that to their world. Now, if I want to know what the application is, I got to go back and have a basic understanding of Balaam and his donkey so I can understand it. The Old Testament picture to understand the New Testament application. In fact, you're just going to see verses after verses after verses making reference to the Old Testament, the Old Testament, the Old Testament. This is just a few of them. They are everywhere. When we get to the throne room of God in chapter 4 of Revelation, you see this rainbow that is behind the throne room of God. Well, why did God put that rainbow in Genesis chapter 6, 7, 8, and 9? It's actually found in Genesis chapter 9 when Noah got off the ark. He told Noah, I'm going to put a rainbow in the sky so that you will know that every time you look at it, that I will keep my promise. I will never destroy this entire earth again with a flood. So what does that represent? It represents God keeps his promise. Has God ever flooded the entire earth again since that day? No, he has not. Is that keeping his promise? Yes, it is. Now here I am. I come to the throne room of God. What's behind the throne room of God? A rainbow. And I'm talking to God. I have prayer requests. I have requests that I make of God. What does that symbolize? That God keeps his promises. Oh, I get it. I get the picture. Old Testament application to the book of Revelation, New Testament. You get it? They're everywhere. But once you have that basic understanding, it's going to make a lot of sense. Jezebel, when he writes to one of the 7 churches of Asia, he uses the story of Jezebel. Might want to go back and read that, understand that, and then make the application to how he is using it. He's going to use the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 is going to be a number that is used a lot in the book of Revelation. It has meaning. You're going to have some basic understanding of that. There is just all kinds of application from the Old Testament. It's an Old Testament book. And if you have that understanding, it'll make a lot more sense. All right, number 6. Number 6 is that Revelation is a futuristic book. It is written to the future. Here's a question. What part of the future? We get here to book of Revelation. This is what we find. Revelation 1:1 says things that must soon take place. Revelation 1:3, the time is near. Chapter 2, I will soon come to you. And then in Revelation chapter 22, the last chapter of our Bibles, the last chapter of the book, things that will soon take place. I'm coming soon. The time is near. I'm coming soon. Soon. Is somebody trying to make a point here? That these things will happen soon? The time is near? I think somebody is. Now, it's been almost 2,000 years since the book has been written. If these things haven't taken place yet, does that sound like soon to you? Doesn't to me. So maybe this isn't talking about the end of time. Maybe this is talking about their time, but still to the future. When I teach this class, I like to go through the book of Daniel first, and I'll eventually get these videos up and do the book of Daniel for us. But when we see the book of Daniel, it has lots of prophecy in it. And when we get to the last chapter, when we get to chapter 12, and you read from 4 through 10, you're going to see that he tells Daniel, look, seal these things up, go to your end, you're going to die, these things will happen far to the future, okay? Way beyond Daniel's lifetime. That makes sense? Okay? Daniel's not going to see these things. But you can see it right here. Then I, Daniel, looked, and there before me stood two others, one on the one bank of the river and one on the opposite bank. One of them said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, how long will it be before these astonishing things are fulfilled? The man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, lifted his right hand and his left hand towards heaven, and I heard him swear by him who lives forever, saying, it will be for time, times, and half a time, when the power of the holy people has been finally broken. All these things will be completed. And then I heard, but I did not understand. So I asked my Lord, what will the outcome of all this be? He replied, go your way, Daniel, because the words are closed up and sealed until the time of the end. Now, this isn't the time of the end of the world, no, until the people, his people, the power has been finally broken. That happened in 70 AD with the destruction of Jerusalem, when God destroyed the temple and their power was broken forever. So that's these prophecies, and you'll see this very clear in the book of Daniel, were fulfilled. But that's way past the lifetime of Daniel. So this book is far to the future. It's a sealed book. Does that make sense? So it's sealed. Now, we come to the book of Revelation. We see the book of Revelation is an unsealed book. That it was sealed up, but it was opened up. We see this in chapters 5 and 6 and chapter 22, verse 10. That means that this book is short to the future, happening in their lifetime. Right? Look at chapter 5, verse 1 through 5. Then I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writing on both sides, and sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming in a loud voice, who is worthy to break the seal and open the scroll? But no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth could open the scroll or even look inside. And I wept and wept because no one was found who was worthy to open the scroll or look inside. Then one of the elders said to me, do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its 7 seals. See, this book is being opened. Daniel was closed up. One book is sealed. One book is unsealed. You see the difference? One was far to the future, and the other book is short to the future. Both to the future. But one's a long time in the future. One's a short time in the future. The point is this. If we take the book of Revelation and push it all the way to our world today and go, these events are happening today, then we've taken this book out of context. This was to the future. There's going to be some things happening. Persecution is going to get worse. We're going to see that. But to apply it to 2,000 years later, no. It's going to happen soon. The time is near. I'm coming soon to take care of you. That makes sense? Sure does to me. And number 7, here's the last principle that we need to apply to the book of Revelation. Don't make your picture small. Okay? Now, I showed you this picture here. What catches your eye? Well, most of the ladies will pick out the flowers, especially those, they look like some blue bonnets there from Texas. I don't know. But they pick out some flowers. But when you step back, the picture's much bigger. There's a lot more things going on. And sometimes people do that with the book of Revelation. They make their picture too small. Let me give you an example. One of the things that's brought up a lot when I study with people is they want to know about the 144,000 in the book of Revelation. Because it talks about the 144,000 will be saved. Well, what happens is our friends, like, for instance, one of many, so they take this and they make the number, this 144,000 Jehovah's Witness, they say that only 144,000 will be saved. Well, that is what the book says. But is that what the book of Revelation means? And remember, it comes from, you take this number, 144,000, and you go back and you see how the Bible uses this number. Where does 144,000 come from? 12. Okay, 12 times 12 is 144. You take that to the 10th degree, and it's 144,000, right? So here you have 144,000. That's all that will be saved. The Jehovah's Witnesses say that's a literal number. That's all that's going to be saved. Now, that's not a very good chance for us. For all the people that's ever been on this earth, that's all that will ever be saved is 144,000. I don't think I'm going to have a chance to go to heaven if that's true. But see, what happened is they made their picture too small. Because the number 12 has meaning. If you go through the book of the Bible, or the Bible, and you see how God uses number 12, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 apostles, 12 always connects to God's people. Okay? So God's people will be saved. How many of them? All of them. Don't make the picture too small. Get so caught up in this one little subject and make it so small, like our religious friends have done. But look and let the Bible interpret it. Step back and look at the bigger picture. And you'll see in chapter 21, Revelation, it uses the number 12 all the time. And how does it use it there? He says, let me describe to you, let me show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. Who is married to the Lamb? Us, the church, God's people. And how does he describe us? 12 walls, 12 foundations, 12 gates, 12, 12, 12, 12, 1,200, the numbers, and just 12, 12, 12, 12, 12. What is that representing? God's people. So when you go back to Revelation chapter 7, you see the 144,000 will be saved. What is it saying? All of God's people will be saved. Every single one of them. Now, if you're not of God's people, then you won't be saved. Don't make your picture too small. I hope this has helped you today. I hope it helped you to understand the book of Revelation. And if you apply these principles to this book, it's going to make a lot more sense. But if you don't, we're going to get off track. We're going to take it out of context, and we're going to make this book say things that it was never meant to say. So I hope you enjoyed this class today, and I hope you come back next time as we continue our study. And next time we will get into chapter 1 of the book of Revelation. God bless you. I'm praying for you, and you guys stay safe.